want something that looks tired, where things look really old and decrepit. Because again, if the buyer walks or were to walk up and see that, because you're always trying to look at it through the minds of a potential buyers, but if they were to walk up and see that, they may be thinking, okay, well, if these things are neglected and not being maintained, what else in the house is likely not being maintained as well? And you never want a buyer to walk through the door of your house looking for something to be wrong. You want them to be walking in looking for all the ways that this space could potentially be theirs. And starting with that curb appeal is a great way to really have that good first impression, right? Welcome to the Home Goals Podcast, the ultimate guide for turning your home goals into a reality. I'm your host, Derek Thornton. Join us as we navigate the twists and turns of obtaining a home. We'll be offering expert tips, helping you avoid pitfalls, and championing your journey towards that cherished place to call home. In this week's episode, we will be discussing the top renovations to consider after buying your very first home. We're going to discuss 5 budget-friendly tips that I think are really going to help you not only improve the function, but also, more importantly, add value to that home. Your entire mindset around that property, around that home, shifts when you go from being a renter to a homeowner, right? Because the overall condition impacts the value of the home, and that value almost directly correlates to your net worth. It directly correlates to one of the largest assets that you will likely have in your lifetime. And so it's very important that you're always keeping that in the forefront of your mind. I never want you to feel as if you're living in a display case and you have to keep things show ready at all times. I want you to be comfortable in your first home, but I also want you to periodically think about the fact that whenever you make changes or updates, or whenever you don't do those things, you have to understand that the overall condition of your home is going to have a huge factor in what that home's value ultimately is. And you have to ask yourself every now and then, if I had to turn around and sell this home today, how much work am I having to do, right? Is it in mostly good condition? Is it show ready? Is it possible for me to make that happen on a fast turnaround? Or am I having to do like almost a complete gut job of renovation because I haven't made any changes or improvements all the time that I've been living here, right? So it needs to be somewhere swirling around in your mind. It doesn't always necessarily need to be at the forefront, but it's something that you need to think about. And so I wanted to talk about 5 things that I think you can do that are really going to give you a fresh look and a fresh perspective to the way that your home looks and ultimately helps the valuation. One thing most realtors will tell you, myself included, all renovations are not created equal. So don't think that just because you spent $50,000 on that kitchen remodel that your house is automatically worth $50,000 more than what it was before you did that. That's rarely how it works. There's almost no renovation or upgrade that you can do that's going to give you a dollar for dollar return. You have to understand that a lot of those changes, a buyer is not necessarily going to see it that way, even if it did cost you that much to do it. And so I'm not saying that you can't go and do that nice bathroom remodel, that nice kitchen remodel, but I want you to understand that doing those things doesn't always equate to that, right? I want you to have those nicer things, but you need to understand going into it, some things I'm going to do just because I like it like that, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be able to get that value back when I go to sell this home. And that needs to always be on your mind when you're considering what projects and things that you want to tackle. Your realtor can always be a wonderful resource in helping you determine which things you need to focus on most. Like I said, in this episode, we're just going to focus on 5 very basic budget-friendly things that are really going to have a tremendous impact and aren't going to break the bank in the process. So the first one that I would recommend, and this is for anyone across the board, is just adding paint for a fresh start. You would be surprised in the way that paint can really transform a space and make it completely different. It can open up a room, make it feel bigger or larger than it is. It's a great way to cover up a lot of the wear and tear and things that have happened, especially if you're moving into a resale home as opposed to new construction. A lot of those resale homes, you might have scuffs and scrapes over the walls over the years. I know my kids, they got fingerprints and stuff all over the walls. They got food and all kinds of things. They just run their hands all across the walls. And so I understand how that goes. But then also, a lot of times when people are moving out, you'll see a lot of nail holes and pops and stuff like that from pictures and things that they had hung on the walls. Adding a fresh coat of paint is a great way to just cover that up, restart for that whole room, and it makes a massive difference for not having to do it. Now, you can obviously hire someone to do that, or you can do it yourself. Just make sure that you are following the rules and doing that as appropriately as you can to make sure that it looks nice, right? You don't want it to look like someone just grabbed a brush and just went crazy or haywire in there. But a fresh coat of paint can do it as well. Another thing to keep in mind too is I would recommend that you still stick with neutral tones, right? Find ways that if, again, you had to turn around and resell it on a dime or very quickly, that you're not having to get like 4 or 5 coats of paint over this hot pink wall that you did in one room because you just liked it that way. Again, whatever you're trying to resell the home, you want to appeal to the largest pool of buyers possible. And the more unique paint colors or loud paint colors that you have in there, the smaller that pool of buyers become, right? You want them to be able to walk in and envision their own things in that home. And so that's why you want to try to stick with that. And so if you want to add your own flair or design to a particular room, I would recommend that you use a neutral color as the foundation, and then you can add in the photos on the wall or collages or different things like that to really add that pop of color without changing it, so that if you did need to move out of there, you still have a neutral color that buyer can work with. And so that's one of the first and foremost, one of the best ways to really change the appearance and feel of a house right out of the gate. Another easy one to do when you're first starting out is to upgrade the lighting fixtures, especially like I said, if you're dealing with a home that was maybe 10, 20, 30 years old or older. It likely has some fixtures in there that look very dated, right? They got the ones that are outdated. And if you're trying to figure out like what is quote unquote in or quote unquote the new style, a great resource for you can just be new construction communities, right? You can look at a lot of those homes and see and get some ideas of what is appealing to most of the buyers out there, right? Because you want to get something that you like, but is also attractive to a lot of other buyers and more of a modern feel as well. And so you can look to see what type of light fixtures you can get out there, and just swapping those out is a low cost way to really boost that home's appeal and make it more likable to it. And it also can help, depending on what type of bulbs and lighting you're using, if you get more energy efficient bulbs as well, that can also have an impact that benefits them too. Now, that may not always convey, again, in the pricing, right? It's not necessarily like you can sell your house for a ton more because it has those bulbs and those lighting features that are a little more energy efficient, but it is going to be a great marketing feature that could appeal to potential buyers and make them more likely to buy your house as opposed to another if they're priced similarly. The third one that I would recommend is to do a complete refresh on the kitchen cabinets. That is one that can, again, change the entire outlook of the kitchen. The kitchen and the bathrooms are often two of the biggest areas that many buyers are looking at, and they want to see have been upgraded or improved in some way or some manner. Those are two key areas that a lot of people tend to focus on, especially when you're trying to put that house up for sale. That's something that people kind of tend to gravitate towards. And it's something that if you were to invite someone over to your house, that's likely one of the rooms they're guaranteed to see. They may not get to take a look at all the different houses unless they're really nosy before you give them a tour, but they may not get to see all the other rooms and areas and closets in that house. But the kitchen is one of those things that's kind of front and center. They're definitely going to get to see that. And so a lot of people are going to want to see that refreshed in some way. And starting with the kitchen cabinets is a great way to kind of do that without necessarily going all out with the full kitchen remodel that costs tens of thousands of dollars. And so you could start by painting the cabinets. You could change the hardware on them, right? So if they have like the little knobs that looks a little dated, you can change those out to give it a more modern feel. Work on the backsplash if you really want to go a little bit further as well too, and then also adding different ways to organize or change up the features of the already existing cabinetry, right? And so if you have some cabinets in there, but let's say you're kind of pressed for space, you might go to a store and grab some organizers to help you fit more items in a particular space or organize them really well. There's been a lot of times when I've gone to show homes and they have the exact same pantry as me, but their pantry looks way more efficient and way more storage friendly than mine does because they have a ton of different organizers in there, right? They've really maximized and utilized that space to its full capacity, and it makes it look so much larger and so much more efficient than what you already have. And so that's a great way for you to be able to not only benefit yourself in maximizing your productivity and efficiency of your kitchen, but it's also a great way for you to make that kitchen look really appealing to a lot of people as well. And so that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind. We'll talk about that in one of the other steps as well, and the way that you can really do it. But again, the kitchen is going to be one of the main things that many buyers are looking at, and any way that you can find that's budget friendly to try to help that area really pop and really show up, that's definitely something that you're going to want to consider. Number 4, you want to boost the curb appeal, but do so on a budget. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go out and order a full yard of sod and have that all set out right. Start with things that are as budget friendly as possible, but can make a huge difference. One of the things that immediately comes to my mind is power washing, right? That's something that you can typically get done for, depending on the size of the house, you can typically get it done for about a couple $100, sometimes even less. Just doing a general power wash of the house itself, the driveway, can really make that property shine, really make it show up and make it pop, and it makes a huge difference right out of the gate, and something that you only have to do periodically every now and then. But then in addition to that, you could also add new house numbers, painted doors. You know, a lot of times the house numbers may have been rusted over, or it looks old and it's peeling and stuff too. My mailbox, when I first moved to my house, it started leaning, the wood had started rotting and the numbers were really old and stuff like that. And so I just went to Lowe's and got a can of paint, painted it, put the same numbers on there, repainted those, and it looks a million times better, and it did not cost me much at all to be able to just replace that entire mailbox. But that, again, adds to that overall curb appeal, right? You don't want something that looks tired, where things look really old and decrepit, because, again, if the buyer were to walk up and see that, because you're always trying to look at it through the minds of a potential buyers, but if they were to walk up and see that, they may be thinking, okay, well, if these things are neglected and not being maintained, what else in the house is likely not being maintained as well? And you never want a buyer to walk through the door of your house looking for something to be wrong. You want them to be walking in looking for all the ways that this space could potentially be theirs. And starting with that curb appeal is a great way to really have that good first impression, right? So you could also use flowers and do some mulch just to kind of get the space spruced up. You could put a potted plant on the front door. That adds some life and character to the area, makes it more inviting. But again, these are all just very cost-effective ways that aren't like just a massive overhaul where you're having to basically start from scratch with the front yard. But you want to just try to work your way up and you find ways to effectively utilize that space and really make it show some life as soon as they walk up there. And so that's a great way. So that boost that curb appeal on the budget. That's number 4. And then the fifth one, the fifth tip that I have just for kind of a budget friendly way, is just finding a way to add storage where you can. Now, storage is going to be your best friend. And I'm going to tell you right now, there will never be enough, right? There's always going to be something that I can't tell you how many times people have said, like, oh, this is awesome. Like, we live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We're moving to this house that's about twice the size. This will be more than enough space for us. And then you talk to them a few years later and they have like boxes coming out of the doors, like they have no room for anything. Like you said, you always kind of increase to the amount of space that you have. I can't tell you how many neighborhoods I've been to where everybody has a garage, but none of the cars are parked in the garage because everybody's using it as added storage. Right. And so you always are trying to find ways to maximize and really be efficient in adding the storage where you can. Think of floating shelves, right? That's a great way to kind of add those so it's not kind of getting in the way. Closet organizers. Again, it's what I talked about the pantry and tip number 3 in saying that, like, hey, that's a great way to do it. You can also use closet organizers as well as a way to really maximize that space. Even though it's the exact same as everybody else's, you're finding a more effective way to use it to make sure you get all you can. Under bed storage. That's a big one that my wife and we use for our own family too. A lot of our winter coats and stuff, we have those things vacuum sealed in little bags. We just put those right underneath the bed, get them out in season when it's time, and then push them back underneath whatever, and that's less closet space is being taken up by these big bulky coats that you have as well. Finding like DIY pantries or other things as well. We bought a buffet for our kitchen recently to get some more added storage, right? We have a solid amount of counter space, but I love to cook, which means I also have a lot of appliances and tools that were taking up a lot of that space on our kitchen counters. And so we bought that buffet as added storage. It fit perfect. We bought one that fit perfectly in the size so it wasn't taking up too much space, but we're able to hide and tuck away all of those different appliances and everything in there, right? And so finding little ways that you can change that without, again, doing a complete rehaul, right? It's not like we were saying, hey, we need to do a complete kitchen remodel and add a whole new set of cabinets. No, we don't need to do that. We can just get a moving island or a buffet or something like that to kind of add to that storage and make sure that we're effectively using all the space that we can. And that's going to make a huge difference. And again, that also is going to help when you are trying to appeal to potential buyers. I know you just bought the home, so you're not necessarily thinking like, what is another buyer going to think about that? But that thought does need to be in the back of your mind at all times. And when it comes time for you to sell the home and you're taking photos and trying to stage it, you want to really let that buyer know, hey, here's all of the creative ways that I've found to maximize this space, and there's nothing that's stopping you from doing the exact same thing as well. That's why staging is always so effective when it comes to selling a home, because as the saying goes, buyers don't know what they see. They only know what they see. They don't know the way it's going to be, which is basically a fancy way of saying that. But what they see is what they can envision, right? They don't have necessarily the creativity or the ability to be able to envision all the different ways that you can use a certain space, right? They can't really envision what it's going to look like when their couch is in that living room. Are they going to have enough space to walk by? Are they going to have areas for this? Is there going to be enough room for a table and storage in here? Those are things that they can only really visualize when they actually have the furniture sitting right there in front of them. And so that's why it's going to be so effective for you to be able to use those things, not only to help make your own life easier, but also help improve the marketability of that home when it is time for you to sell. And so I just wanted to kind of go through some different items as well to give you an idea of what's out there and some simple steps that you can take right out of the gate once you first move into that home to really make sure that you are boosting that value and that marketability to help yourself as well as to help your value, which again is going to help to improve your home's marketability and your ultimate net worth. When that home goes to sell, buyers can tell whether or not someone has been taking the time to maintain the home, do the things that are important, and that's really going to be reflected when it comes time for that. And so again, you always need to be thinking down the road from where you are right now. That does need to be something that you take into consideration in any home purchase that you have. That should always be something that is on the forefront of your mind. So I hope that you find those tips helpful. Again, those are just 5 ways to kind of get started with that. There's a ton more options and things out there that you can do. But if you just start with those 5 things we talked about today, that's going to make a world of difference in really helping the space feel like it's your own, maximizing that opportunity and adding value. Hope that that's helpful for y'all. Have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you next week.